Welcome back for part 2 of this webinar on tools. We discussed last time several of the tools that we've developed to help admins with some of their tasks that have popped up over the years. I did want to maybe just briefly recap what we talked about last time. We talked about this dashboard pruner tool, just basically a way to remove stale and empty dashboards. There's another tool called the program rule validator. It helps you to validate program rule expressions, various parts of those in bulk. Otherwise, you got to go into the maintenance app and like click on them one by one. So it's very inconvenient if you're looking for program rules that aren't working. The user role aggregator, this is basically a tool that was really intended to allow you to create a role for a user to manage other users. It's not always super straightforward to get the permissions correct. So this tool is basically a way to allow you to create a new role to manage other users. The user disabler helps to disable users that have been inactive for some period of time. The deprecated authorities tool, we talked about this last time, but due to changes in versions, maybe installing old apps or new apps and then uninstalling them, there can be a lot of deprecated authorities that are no longer needed in the system. And that's a tool to help you find them and to get rid of them. I did want to come back to the toolbox and talk a little bit about, in general, what the tools are for, and also to provide some warnings about them. So this toolbox is another app that is basically sort of an alternative app hub. We do have the app hub that's integrated into DHIS2. If you go to app management and you go to app hub, you will see all of the apps that are on our app hub. All of these tools are not there, and they're not there specifically because they are not intended for end users. All of these tools, and that's why we're also calling them tools to kind of distinguish them from an app. They are in general meant to be quite simple, maybe do one or two things, and are primarily intended for, well, I would say only intended for users that are administering DHIS2. Most of them are destructive to some extent, meaning that they will do something, they can do things to the system that may result in deleting metadata or changing metadata in a destructive way. So you should always, of course, be very careful with them, and of course always test them in a development environment to be sure that whatever changes you make to your production system later on are going to work. This is the toolbox. You can install this. It's a little janky to get installed because you also need to provide your GitHub token. I'm not going to go through that whole process. It is described in the documentation. But you can find this, again, all of these are located on our GitHub. If you go to github.com, DHIS2, and repositories, you can just search for tool, and this one is called Toolbox, I think. So if you search for Toolbox, then this is basically another app. You can download the apps. We release all of them through GitHub, not via the app hub, basically. So you can simply download.
Excuse me, are you
Yeah.
showing us now? Or are you just talking? Because you're not sharing at the moment. So I'm just double checking whether you're just explaining or you're also showing while you're explaining.
This was the same thing last time, right? That was talking for like 10 minutes and not sharing my screen. Yeah. Okay. Well, you didn't miss a whole lot. I was talking about the toolbox. You can see, can you see my screen now?
Yep, we see it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Olaf. Appreciate it. Okay, so yeah. So as I was saying, the in order to install these apps, you can go to the GitHub. This toolbox is basically an alternative kind of app store. You can download the zip file. You can then go back to your DHIS2 to the app management and then do manual install and find the zip file that you've just downloaded. And it will be available like any other app, basically. Um, so this DHIS2 admin toolbox, there is a separate step here of putting in your GitHub repo key, basically, so a personal access token to GitHub. The only reason that this is necessary is because we use the GitHub API, and they're very restrictive about making anonymous calls to GitHub. So that's the reason why this app needs read-only access to GitHub. That key is stored in your user data store, so it's not available to any other user in DHIS2. But I just wanted to be sure that you were aware that's what this app does, basically. The advantage with this is that it tells you, which version you have installed. For instance, we have 0.17 installed, and there is a new version available. And it does provide a download link directly. So if you want to make your life a little bit easier, you can use this. You don't have to do that. You can also just download them directly from GitHub as well. So we wanted to move on and talk about this category disabler app. Let me go back to my DHIS2. See if I can get rid of that there. So what is the category disabler? There's some verbiage here at the top, basically. And you'll have to excuse this double header bar. This is a bug that I should have fixed before this webinar, but I didn't. We'll definitely fix it soon. This basically shows you a list of categories which are dimensions, but which have not been used in any favorites over the past 12 months. So what is the impact of this? Well, I'm just going to show you the terminal really quickly. We're looking at the database now of DHIS2, and these are all of these in the analytics tables, we've got a whole bunch of dimensions. They're always like with a UID. They can include categories, category option groups, group sets, data element group sets, organization unit group sets. So every time that you enable a category as a dimension, a new column is created in the database. So that column takes time to generate. It takes time to index. It also takes disk space to occupy. So unless you're using that category, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to have it enabled. And of course, you may be familiar with this. I've seen this very often in many systems. If we go to the data visualizer, you can see this is a serially owned database, so it's not too bad. But we definitely have seen others where there can be 60, 70 dimensions here that can be potentially confusing to users. Normally, you would want the dimensions that are most relevant for analysis. And of course, in the latest versions of DHIS2, we get some sort of recommendation based on the data. This isn't always completely accurate. I think the bigger impact, of course, is just simply having categories as dimensions, which you don't really need. And of course, you can always do this through the maintenance app as well. You can just go to category. You can see, whichever category, and we can tick on data dimension here. So if we wanted births attended by to be a dimension, for it to be available as a dimension in the data visualizer, we can enable that in the maintenance app. So when we go back to the data visualizer, this births attended by is now going to be available here. So the point of this app then is basically just to give you an idea of the category which are used as dimensions or which are enabled as data dimensions. How many of them have had any favorites which have been created over the past 12 months? So in this case, we see that a number of them have not been used in any favorites over the past 12 months. And this may give you an indication of whether or not the dimension is actually needed. If it's not being used in any favorites, then you may want to consider to remove it. This app is not particularly destructive. You can always re-enable this. So we could, for instance, remove referral age. The only impact of this is going to be what the app actually does is we just essentially just untick that box. That's all that the app does. So if we look for referrals, yeah, it's just a matter of unticking this box. And when we regenerate analytics again, then this column will not be part of the analytics tables, which may speed up analytics and decrease the amount of disk space that's required. We have seen pretty significant increases in analytics generation time and also retrieving analytics by optimizing this, by really looking at which of the categories actually are needed as dimensions and yeah, optimizing them. The only caveat that I will say that you should probably think about is if you're using the dataset reports, we go to reports and dataset report. Maybe I won't choose that one. Well, that wasn't a great one either. Morbidity, maybe. Okay, so there's no data there. It doesn't really matter. But what I did want to point out here is that if you are using this particular feature of the dataset reports, the categories are used here, basically, right? So if you're using this, it will not necessarily show up as having been linked to a favorite, right? So that's the determination that the app makes, is seeing if any favorites have been created with that dimension. But if you're using the dataset reports, you may get sort of, I guess, like a false positive, right? So you should consider that before you disable them. I think that's about it for the, yeah, just checking the chat there. I think that's about it for the category disabler. I'll just keep moving on to the next one, and then I think we can take questions at the end. The next is the white space remover app or tool. I think this is fairly straightforward in terms of what it does. Again, we've got this double header bar. We'll have to be sure that we remove that. What this app does is to find any instances of double spaces. In this case, you can see that it's highlighted in yellow, and there's a double space between town and CHP. Leading spaces, like in this case, you can see that there's a leading space here and trailing spaces. Our recommendation is that you should not have any multiple spaces, leading spaces, or trailing spaces in any metadata. It can become very confusing because users may not be able to see this when they're doing data entry or in the data visualizer either. You know, we have seen in cases that people use this method to distinguish, or basically to have two separate metadata objects with the same name. We don't think that's good practice because it can become very confusing to know which of the two metadata objects you're referring to when they're only distinguished by potentially a trailing space. So in this case, again, it's fairly straightforward what this tool does. We need to check to be sure that there's no conflict, and then we can hit fix. You can also do them in bulk if you tick here, and then check selected. Okay, we checked and then fix. Okay, so we fixed all the organization units. We can basically do the same on all of the other metadata objects, right? Options, option sets, basically everything that has some type of name. We believe that you should not have, it's not good practice basically to have this white space in any of those metadata objects. I think that's fairly straightforward, so we'll move on to the translation deduplicator. I'm not sure that I had this one installed. Let's see. Yeah, I did actually. So in this particular instance, we don't have any duplicate translations. Olav, you want to talk about this job status tool, and then we can come back. Let me fire up another database where I have some of these duplicate translations, and we'll come back to it in a minute.
Yep, sure, I can do that. Just take over the screen here. So something we call the job status monitor, and the idea with that one is just to give you an easier way to see what jobs are currently running on the system. So typically analytics jobs, data exchange jobs, various cleanup tasks. So I'm now opening an instance where I don't have any currently running jobs. The only thing it does then is to show me a list of the previous jobs. So the last job that was run was the analytics table update, which completed without issues earlier today. And it also gives me a list of the next upcoming jobs based on what is scheduled in the system. The idea with this is that I think it's especially useful if you're working on some configuration involving, for example, predictors or data exchange, and you need to configure something, and then you need to run it, and then you need to verify the results. And especially if you're more than one person then working in the same instance, it can be a bit messy to keep track of who is running what at what time. So that was why we put together this tool. And let me just show you what it looks like if we do now just analytics table update. It will just show this at the top. But this one is running at the moment. It will show what tables are included in the update. So it gives you an overview of the job, and then it gives you like a progress thing here. All of this is the same that you will get in if you started the analytics job in the data administration app. It's using the same API endpoint to actually get all this status information. So it's nothing, this doesn't give you more info, but it gives you info that you normally have to get from the API in a more usable way. And it also then, if you have like in this case for tracker target, you typically need to have a queue with several jobs running in sequence. So running first tracker analytics, then moving the data with the data exchange job, then finally running the aggregate analytics. So in those cases as well, you can, I'm not sure if my analytics job is finished yet. Let's just double check. Still running. Almost done. You can also use this to see the latest info. I mean, let's see. Just start it and see what happens. Oh, wait. I think event is the last I included. No, enrollment. Okay, it's done. So it's added to the list. If I run a queue, it will just, I mean, show up in the same way, but it will list all the jobs in that queue, and it will tell you which one is running, which one is waiting, and it lets you just track progress in a bit more friendly way than looking at the API endpoints directly. So that's the job status tool. I don't know, Jason, if you want to show the translation now, or if we should move to the renaming tool. So before we move out of VTrace.
Yeah, I can show the translation tool. I think it will only take, I think it will go very quickly.
Yeah, okay, so I'll stop sharing.
Okay, I think this one is really straightforward. This is a bit of a weird problem, and you may or may not have it. It depends on the databases, maybe, that you're dealing with. In this particular database from Myanmar, there are duplicated translations. So what this means is that there are two translations for the same data element. This happened due to it's some actual integrity issues in the code and database of DHIS2. It can happen, and the impact can be that you're not able to modify these data elements, basically. Or, yeah, really any type of objects. You can see here, these are all data elements. It also is indicators. Basically anything with a property that is translatable, such as a name, description, short name. All of those things can have duplicate translations, and that will result in not being able to modify the metadata object, basically. So I'm not going to make any changes to this because I cannot read Burmese very well. But this is just to show you that there is the possibility to do this. And so you can use this app to help you to deduplicate these translations, basically. And this can resolve problems if you're editing metadata. That's all this app does, really, is to identify these duplicate translations and allow you to choose which translation you want to keep and then deduplicate them. That's it. But over to you, Olaf.
Thank you. Okay, so then the last thing we wanted to show today is slightly different from the tools we've been showing so far. This is even more sort of experimental than some of the other tools, and it's also not the DHIS2 application. It's a Python script, basically. But it's in the same sort of category of tools meant to help improve on metadata and the configuration. So what this tool does at the moment is limited to just one object type in DHIS, which is data elements. And what it does is to use AI So large language models to help review and improve and sort of complete names of data elements that you have in DHIS. So just starting with this sort of figure showing the process here. It's essentially a tool that takes you specify one particular aggregate data set in DHIS. The tool will download that into just a JSON file. It then has functionality to review all the data elements in that JSON file with the different AI models. And I mean, like I said, this is a bit experimental, so we're trying a few different things there to see what actually makes a difference in terms of providing good suggestions. So we are providing it with also a bit additional metadata, like including in the requests what type of indicators are being calculated based on a particular data element, trying to make sure that everything is sort of done within the same context so that the names of different data elements have a similar structure, providing different system prompts to make sure there's a good sort of naming convention being followed, etc. Then after this automated processing of the data elements, it produces an Excel file. The idea there is that you can go in and you can review. So in our testing so far, I mean, it often works quite well what comes from the AI, but there is always something you have to change or edit afterwards. So you can do that then directly in Excel. And when you're happy with the changes in Excel, the last part of the tool is to patch your DHIS instance with the edited changes. We also have a sort of an optional feature to again try to improve the naming suggestions being given by the AI. Which is to take different reference documents, indicator dictionaries, whatever you have for a particular organization or a ministry documenting sort of the official indicator lists. Running that through, again, an AI process to create what is called an embedding database, which is basically a database full of terms with some AI vectors linked to it, which lets you look up terms based on the actual meaning of the terms and not just the characters, the string itself. So the tool also lets you build this kind of database and use that as input when suggesting names for data elements. So this is sort of the workflow. I'll just basically go through the different steps here. And what this tool looks at is the name, the short name, and the description. So that's sort of the scope for now. And we know that this is many places the naming conventions are not great, and very often there are no descriptions for the different data elements. So that's sort of the reason that we started building this in the first place. So I'll just sort of show you how to go through this process. So the first part, like I said, is to optionally take this kind of, in this case, I'm looking at the WHO reference list of indicators, which has lots of details about the names, definitions, descriptions, how this is measured, etc. So this is the kind of document that you can use to build AI database of terms. So let me find my. I didn't find one of them. Okay, so I've checked out this Python repository now and configured it. What you need to configure as a minimum is pointing it to your DHIS2 instance and entering a access token for the authentication. And then you need to have a API key for the AI model you want to use. It is possible to run also with local models using Olama, but that can be challenging to find something that actually performs well enough on a normal laptop or desktop. So for the most part, I've been working on this with different versions of ChatGPT, but it also lets you use Google Gemini models and Mistral models. And for Gemini, it is actually possible to get the key for free, even though it has quite strict limits on how much you can do per minute and per day. So it's possible to do this without paying anything by using a local model or the free Google models, but performance is not great compared to the ChatGPT models. Okay, so let me just start by running this. I think if I deleted it, so this embedding. So I'll take this WHO indicator dictionary. I'll just cut out, so it's just 3 pages that we don't have to wait for too long. Oh, sorry. Forgot to set up the Python stuff properly. So what this does is it converts the PDF to just plain text, and then it uses one AI model to identify all the indicators here and put that in a special embedding database. So from these 3 pages, it's so far stored 8 definitions. And it's done. So from this PDF, it has now created this database. With embeddings, and just show an example. So here it has extracted all these different terms. With some metadata about the name, what is the definition, if this is an indicator, what is the numerator, denominator, whether it's a case-based or aggregate kind of indicator, etc. So all this info is used then when you're proposing new names to your DHIS2 metadata. It will see, do I have something similar to what is in this embedding database that I can use to propose good definitions. So that's the first part. This is optional. I think we're still waiting to see if it actually makes a big difference to what is being proposed or not. But it's there for people who want to experiment, and it's something we're looking into the implications of. Okay, so if I can find so going back to DHIS, this is the database I'm working on now. I'll just pick a small data set because it is a bit time consuming. It's typically something you would start and then do something else while it works in the background. I just picked one data set here, HIV care monthly, which has just 4 data elements. And these are the names, so not very comprehensive. None of them have any definitions or anything. So this is the dataset I'm using, and I'll run now the same tool, asking it to fetch that dataset and run it through the models. So I'll just specify this is where I have the DCHIS instance information, and I specify the dataset I'm looking at. And I also want to specify that it should have a HIV prefix. So this lets you also add and remove prefixes as part of the rename process. Current. It's supposed to be new prefix. Okay, so that will take a bit of time. I can just show you one I was running. I ran earlier as an example. So this first step of the process produces an Excel file like this. So we have the ID, then we have the name, which is the name that is currently in DCHIS. TB new SS plus cases. Then we have in yellow is what the AI is proposing as a new name with the prefix. Same with the short name and the proposed new short name. Description in DCHIS, there was nothing. And then this in yellow is the description that is being proposed by the AI. Number of newly diagnosed butyl positive pulmonary TB cases notified and registered, etc. So it's created definitions, descriptions for all of these data elements. And this is sort of a bit for understanding what's going on. This is the justification that the AI is providing for providing these suggested names and descriptions. So this one is through the initial run, and then it does one run of the whole data set together. So it actually goes to the AI twice. The last one mostly to make sure that the names being proposed within the dataset are consistent with each other, so that the same structure to the names are being added to both. So the idea here is that you get this, then you can review, you can change, you can remove and edit. And it's an Excel file, so you can also, I mean, this is a TB dataset. You can send it to the National TB program and have them review it and see if this makes sense. And when you're happy with what is in these yellow columns, now it's also done with the HIV dataset, almost. So then when you're done, you just run a similar command, Python patch, and it will update the DHIS2 instance with these proposed names, short names, and descriptions. Okay, so that one is also done now. So for the HIV, we have now another Excel sheet. This is what it's proposing here for the new names, short names, and it's adding a description as well. Okay, so then when we're done with this and happy with the Excel file, you just do the same thing, patch, specify that you're uploading this preview dataset. Like this, they're all updated. And if we refresh, DHIS now, we have the new names with the prefix that we specified. So let's just look at counseling provided, for example. HIV counseling provided. We now have the description. We have a new short name, etc. So that's what it does. All this sort of naming convention that it's trying to follow, it's also part of the repository. And it's possible to change this if you have special naming conventions. So let me just see, if you look at this one, for example. These are the instructions. So the first part is just about the structure of the data that it needs to return, but then the actual naming conventions that is being used is here. And here we've also gotten some input from Nora. So I hope it's sort of generally useful as a starting point. But of course, if you have specific conventions already in a particular instance, then you can replace this with what you have. So it has examples of what is a good name, what is a bad name, how to deal with numbers, how to deal with visit counts, how to make sure that things get listed in a sensible way, etc. So this is all sort of part of the tool. And when we've been experimenting with this, a lot of the changes are actually in trying out different system prompts to see what produces the best outputs. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show. I think we've sort of gone through the whole process now, showing how to bring in the indicator dictionary and reference material, extract the data, have the AI review the names, look at the Excel file, the manual review, and upload the final version. So I've been trying to clean up a few things now, adding some instructions and the README, etc. So at the moment, it's not. It's in the DHIS2 GitHub repository for those who are interested in trying it out. But I need 1 or 2 more days before it becomes public. So you won't see it there right now, but by the end of the week, it will be accessible. Okay, so that was the last of the tools. I see there are some chat messages. Yeah, work on translations too. Yeah, I think that's a good point, and probably quite doable with the sort of same with the same kind of workflow. I don't know if there are other comments or questions to this or any of the other tools. We have a few minutes left. Or if you have some additional comments, Jason.
No, nothing else. We can take any questions you might have or clarify the tools that we've come up with. Olav and I plan to produce 12 apps of Christmas, which we did last year, sort of, but we didn't get that far. These are all works in progress, but we do hope, and we've gotten quite good feedback, I think, from many people, administrators that have been struggling with some of these tasks. If you do have suggestions for additional tools that we could think about building, just let us know. And yeah, if you have any questions, write them in the chat or feel free to raise your hand.
Yeah, so there's one question now. Could it also be used to compare review terminology across datasets? So are you thinking to sort of find duplicates, or to make sure it's consistent in this case? Because I mean, I
Oh,
did also. Yeah, no, please go ahead.
oh yeah, I'll just come off of mute because I think it might be easier. Yeah, I was thinking more about comparing terminology used across our data sets and across our programs. Of course, it's not always this, I mean, just to make sure that if we're using one term in one data set, it should be used in the other for consistency. Um, of course, it depends on everyone's own data model and how they're organizing their system, but this is something that I spend a lot of time doing whenever I'm building a new data set, making sure that I'm using consistent terminology and conventions. Um, so it would be helpful to have a tool to assist in doing this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's lots of potential here for a lot of these things, whether it's, I mean, we also started on several tools that we haven't sort of gotten to a stage where we can show them off, but including, I mean, app for when you create new indicators and data elements that will use AI to just propose stuff right away. Also using existing metadata as a reference to try to make it consistent. Also, similar Python tool to what I was showing for looking for duplicates. So, I mean, we have in the integrity checks several things to look for duplicates where it's possible to do that automatically, like indicators having the same expression, etc. But I think also looked into how potentially an AI could help identify just data elements representing the same concepts or category options representing the same age categories, etc. So I think there's lots of interesting potential tools here that are similar, and there are some quite nice Python libraries, for example, that makes it quite easy to experiment with this kind of thing. Okay. I guess if there are no additional questions, comments, we can wrap up from here.
All right, great. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Thanks.
Yep, all good.
Thanks, Nora. Bye.